Ghana to supply World Food Programme with 10,000 tons of food this year to feed the vulnerable in Burkina Faso.
400-kilowatt hybrid waste-to-energy power plant inaugurated to treat solid waste.
Month-long ban on drumming and noise-making in the traditional area to run from May 9 to June 9.
And pilots smoking cigarettes caused 2016 Egypt air crash, killing all 66 passengers and crew on board. This is GBC News. It's time for News Hour. Hello, good evening. I'm Siyoko Kwakutre.
Good evening. My name is Shirley Annan Rebefimpo Manso, who translates the news into sign language. President Akufo-Addo says the approval of the 1992 Constitution by 92% of the votes cast, which was over 3 million votes as against 200,000, was a clear signal that Ghanaians wanted to live in freedom and harness their potential to lift the nation out of doldrums.
Arguably, Ghana is the most stable democracy in West Africa, but the president was quick to add that the price of democracy is eternal vigilance. Nana Akufo-Addo, who was addressing the nation on the 30th anniversary, said although a lot of strides have been made, there are still challenges such as unemployment and poverty.
It was on Tuesday, April 28, 1992, when the journey to constitutional rule began. The main issues were the reintroduction of multi-party politics and the division of powers between president and parliament. Ghana, a former British colony, which in 1957 became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to gain independence, had experienced 3 previous attempts at civilian government overthrown by the military. The ruling council had governed since December 31, 1981, when the elected administration of then-President Dr. Hila Liman was overthrown. Both the ruling Provisional National Defense Council, headed by Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings, and most of the opposition actively campaigned for a yes vote. A yes vote would set the stage for the lifting of a decade-old ban on political parties on May 18, the planned start of campaigning for November presidential elections and December parliamentary polls. There were 8,255,690 registered voters for the referendum. At the end of polls, 3,408,119 people, representing 92.59%, voted for, whilst 272,855, representing 7.41%, voted against. Therefore, on 18th May 1992, the ban on party politics was lifted in preparation for multi-party elections. The PNDC and its supporters formed a new party, the National Democratic Congress (NDC), to contest the elections. Presidential elections were held on November 3 and parliamentary elections on December 29 of that year. Members of the opposition boycotted the parliamentary elections, however, which resulted in a 200-seat parliament with only 17 opposition party members and 2 independents. The new constitution entered into force on 7th January 1993 to found the Fourth Republic. On that day, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings was inaugurated as president and members of parliament swore their oath of office.
GBC News will play back President Akufo-Addo's address to the nation on the 30th anniversary of the referendum that approved the 1990 Constitution at 8 p.m. immediately after the news. 0.6-kilometer beach road expansion project scheduled for completion by November this year will not be met. The engineer on the Lot 2 project, Mr. Boni Aqua, points to the rains and other challenges on a tour of some road projects in Accra. Roads Minister Mr. Kwesi Amoakwata assessed work done so far and also made inputs to deal with existing challenges facing the contractors.
The team's first stop was at the Nungwa A-Life Junction, where there was a pool of water, but no lives lost. At the Sakumono Railway stretch, there was heavy vehicular traffic. The resident engineer, Mr. Boni Aqua, explained the cause.
Certain sections of the construction area gets flooded or ponded, and we pump the water out. On today's rain started raining, and it rained for a long time. That's why we have a lot of water. Now, pumping this water can take the whole day, which may not solve the problem. What we are going to do as a temporary solution is to cut through what we have done with a trench so that the water can flow towards the ocean. In future, when we finish this carriageway where the water has ponded, no water will pond there anymore. The contract. November, we have to finish everything, including the bridge, but that will not be possible. We expect to finish the entire project in June next year.
While interacting with contractors on site, Mr. Mwakwata cautioned residents of Tema and its environs to save the Ramsar site for the future generations.
The indisciplined people among us who are compromising the integrity of the lagoon, who are filling the lagoon for accommodation, should be reasonable and think of tomorrow and think of the future. The lagoon is there for the purpose. The Ramsar site is there for the purpose.
Mr. Mwakwata commended the people of Teshi for cooperating with his ministry for the expansion of the Beach Road project. He called on anyone who is yet to be compensated to contact his office.
I want to use this opportunity to congratulate the people of Teshi and Nungwa. They have been very cooperative. If anybody has not been compensated and it's an oversight, the person should come and prove his or her case and he will be compensated.
At the Abosio Kai Spare Parts Enclave, traders complained to the minister how the road construction is affecting their business. He urged the engineers to speed up work for some relief to residents.
Still on roads, the Minister for Roads and Highways, Mr. Kwesi Amoakwata, has commended contractors working on roads in the Central and Wejagbawe municipalities for work done so far, but also urged them to step up the pace of work to bring relief to road users in the areas. On a working visit to those municipalities to ascertain the damage caused to road projects by the rains, the minister described the havoc as an emergency.
In 2017, the Ministry of Roads and Highways estimated that 61% of roads in the country were of poor quality. 23% of the country's 72,000-kilometer road network had been asphalted. 39% was in good shape, while 61% was classified as poor or fair. Almost every road in the country that is not overlaid with asphalt gets damaged during the rainy season. With the rains already in, the Minister for Roads and Highways, Mr. Kwesi Amoakwata, went on a working visit to Wejagbawe and Ga Central municipalities to see if the ongoing road projects were of the expected quality and resistant to rain havoc.
English amount from then Wejagbawe and Soto. I want to assure the residents of these three constituencies and communities that government will continue to be with them as is being done, as much as possible everywhere necessary.
The minister said government does not take delight in demolishing structures, but then people ought to be mindful that building on waterways hurts everybody in the long run, as it causes flooding and the associated deaths. He also commended engineers for good work done at Anya Sotum and urged them to accelerate a little harder.
Meanwhile, the Minister for Roads and Highways, Mr. Kwesi Amakwata, has directed the Municipal Chief Executive of Ga Central Municipal Assembly to demolish any unauthorized structure in waterways within a week, as well as structures halting construction work as part of measures to stop flooding.
There is a structure right on the waterway, okay? So we cannot have the proper flow of water. Fortunately, the MCE has been with us, okay? MCE, with the highest respect, I am directing you that within a week, pull down this structure. Within a week. MCE, we can't, this is directly on the waterway. And look at the damage it has created, for this stretch of the road. Nobody takes any pressure in bringing down any property. No, it's a very painful exercise, but must be done. In the interest of society, in the interest of even the safety of the very people who do that. Because of this building, the whole place gets flooded.
The World Food Programme WFP has begun taking an order for a targeted 10,000 metric tons of food from Ghana for this year to feed the vulnerable in neighboring Burkina Faso. The WFP explains that this decision is a deliberate measure not only to invest in the local economy but also to help the country to cut down on its over-reliance on food importation from outside of West Africa, especially in challenging times such as the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The WFP has received its second order of food at Kwaso in the Ashanti region and dispatched to Burkina Faso. The World Food Programme, or WFP, is an agency of the United Nations focusing on the promotion of the agricultural value chain and fighting against hunger anywhere in the world, with particular emphasis on farming areas. In 2021, the WFP, through the assistance of Canada, provided a repayable grant of $2.5 million to Premium Foods, an indigenous food processing company in the Ashanti region, to empower the Ghanaian company to supply the UN agency with super cereal meals to feed vulnerable people in Burkina Faso. The intervention is in line with the WFP's Integrated Nutrition Food Security Initiative called Enhanced Nutrition and Value Chains in Ghana. This was part of the program's contribution to Ghana's economy through agro-processing and support for players in the agri value chain, starting from smallholder farmers to transporters of its supply order consignment to beneficiary countries in West Africa. The WFP in 2021 received a pilot order of 600 metric tons of super cereal from the Ghanaian food processor and sent to Burkina Faso. The latest order of 1,800 metric tons of super cereal meal has also been delivered according to specification by the Ghanaian enterprise and also dispatched by Ghanaian transporters to Burkina Faso, where food insecurity and hunger are high. Super cereal is a blend of maize and soybeans fortified with many nutrients to spur proper development in pregnant and lactating women, children, and adolescents. The managing director of Premium Foods, Mr. Tom Gambra, thanked both the government of Canada and the WFP for their support so far.
When it came in, then the other bankers realized, wow, this is something good, let's also move into it. And so they were able to fund it for us.
The Minister, Councillor and Senior Director of Development Programs at Canada's High Commission in Ghana, Madame Sarah Nichols, was satisfied that a country's intervention in Ghana has been worthwhile.
Make a difference to help create jobs and to help lift up Ghanaian excellence into space to make change in Ghana.
The country representative of the WFP, Madam Barbara Clemens, said her agency's food order is directly injecting over $2.3 million into Ghana's economy and anticipates to assist the country to reduce over-reliance on food importation.
To incorporate some of the visions that we had for development in Ghana, I think this is one of it. And the fact that we are now standing in this space, being able to produce and ship to a neighboring country super cereal.
You're still watching News Live on GBC News, your news and governance channel. Smallholder cocoa farmers now have a cocoa farming training manual and handbook. The manual, which is on management of soil for increased productivity and a decreased deforestation in the cocoa sector of Ghana, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria, is to pass on the latest knowledge in soil fertility management and good farm management practices. The manual has been presented to the management of Cocoa Board in Accra. The manual is expected to be used in training extension agents and cocoa farmers.
Healthy soils yield or produce good food and protect the environment. In order for farmers to know the best soil to use in producing cocoa, the Cocoa Soils Program is intensifying cocoa production by developing and disseminating integrated soil fertility management recommendations to cocoa farmers. The handbook, titled Managing Soils for Increased Productivity and Decreased Deforestation in Cocoa, a training manual for field officers, has 3 sections with technical and practical content, namely Introduction to Increasing Cocoa Productivity and Deforestation, Good Agricultural Practices to Increase Productivity, and Soil Fertility Management. The manual was designed and presented to Cocoa Board by the Cocoa Soils Program, a non-government NORAD-funded initiative.
This manual is actually the first version which actually prepares farmers and partners on the newly developed recommendations, which will go through a similar process before we embed the recommendations into the second version of the manual. This will then pave way for its integration into extension messages for cocoa intensification, deepen understanding of the cocoa tree's nutritional requirements while addressing the problem of expansion of cocoa farmlands into forested areas.
The Chief Executive of Cocoa Board, Mr. Joseph Boahen Edu, is confident the manual will help cocoa farmers maximize cocoa production.
I know how challenging it is. You've gone through all this and produced this manual. Let me assure you that we are going to make the best use of this manual. Research and development are very key to every progress. And we want to assure you that once research has done its work, we let our extension division pass the information on to our farmers.
The contents of the manual has been used to train 591 extension agents in Ghana, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria. The extension agents have also trained 32,427 cocoa farmers in the 4 countries using the manual. For GBC News, Yaira Lawe reporting.
A 400-kilowatt hybrid waste-to-energy power plant to treat solid waste in Ghana has been inaugurated at Jankoba near Nkari in the Echima Mabieja municipality of the Ashanti region, funded by the German government through the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. The project cost 6.2 million euros and took 48 months to complete.
The overall objective of the project is to develop concepts for waste segregation and the conversion of various fractions of municipal solid waste into energy using hybrid biogas, pyrolysis and solar PV technologies. The project is to be replicated in other regions of the country. It is expected to help Ghana improve her sanitation by converting the ever-increasing municipal solid waste into energy for productive uses and contribute to sustainable development. Under the project, high-level local experts will be trained in waste management and waste treatment technologies. Currently, the plant uses 50 tons of waste a day to manufacture fertilizers, compost, energy and plastic products. Another significant factor is its contribution to the country's renewable energy and electricity production mix. The Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Kwekwe Friye, commended the Asantehene and the Chief of Jankoba for releasing land for the project.
I'm delighted to see the deployment of these technologies, that is biogas, pyrolysis, in dealing with both organic and plastic waste management, in addition to the harnessing of the sun for energy generation in the country, which tackles 9 of the SDGs. Government has and will continue to engage stakeholders to come up with innovative and sustainable projects, just as what we are witnessing today.
The project coordinator, Professor Satyanatayana Nara, was happy that although the COVID-19 pandemic slowed down the pace of work, they were able to meet the deadline. Research institutions will also use the project to study waste management and power
commitment. Everyone involved showed great flexibility. For example, the refused fuel with plastic recycling is now being used instead of plastic pyrolysis. Thus, the scientific cycle sustainably in Ghana.
The Chimanwa Municipal Chief Executive, Mr. Michael Ewuku, disclosed that some farmers whose lands were used for the project. He said an additional 21-acre land has been released under the 1D1F policy for ginger production in the area.
The Ga Traditional Council has announced a month-long ban on drumming and noise making from May 9 to June 9, 2022 as a precursor to the Homo celebration. The Traditional Council is urging all persons in the Greater Accra region to comply with the ban and cautions against derogatory remarks about the rights and customs as well as the beliefs of the Ga people.
The month-long celebration is a period where the indigents fast and pray for rainfall, a bounty harvest and good tidings. They will also pray for the country and its citizens to keep the peace, love and the tranquility it is enjoying. This year's celebration will commence on the 2nd day of May with the Shiba, which means cleansing the sacred farm, and will be followed by the Madumo, which is the ban on drumming and noise making, on the May 9th and shall continue to the 9th day of June 2022. At a stakeholder engagement meeting to officially announce activities to mark this year's Homowo Festival, the Public Relations Officer of the Ga Traditional Council, Nila Tetete, urged the public to observe the rules regarding the month-long ban to maintain the peace, harmony and security within the Ga community.
All worship centers should confine their activities to within their church premises. 2. Noise making, including clapping of hands, the use of tambourines, and other musical instruments should be avoided during this period. 3. The positioning of loudspeakers outside the church premises and mosques is banned during this period. 4. Roadside evangelism and the use of megaphones and other loudspeakers should also be totally avoided during this period. 5. Funeral rites and its related activities are also banned during this period.
He added that a task force has been set up and together with the various assemblies and the police will be monitoring to ensure compliance and to prosecute offenders.
The Ga Traditional Council shall further count on the cooperation of the various stakeholders in ensuring strict observation and compliance with the Ga custom, practices and usages.
If you happen to find yourself in this part of Africa, there are certain foods you must not let pass you by. Have you ever had a taste of the African recipe masa? And have you ever tried eating it with porridge or cocoa as we know it? On this segment today, we spread out the masa or rice cake that is from the northern part of Nigeria and traditionally enjoyed by the Hausas. It is nutritious, delicious, and filling. Its fluffy goodness can be enjoyed alone or paired with a sauce. From May 1st,
masa, also known as rice cake, has its origin in northern Nigeria. Masa crepes were brought to Africa by the Hausa people. The Hausa people come from the Sahel region and dwell in the north of Nigeria and the south of the Niger down to Lake Chad. Large Hausa communities live in northern Benin, Ghana and Cameroon, which is the reason why masa is more popular in the north of the country. Made with rice or flour and just a few other ingredients, this dish is easy and inexpensive to prepare. Masa is a fermented puff batter of short grain species of rice cooked in a pan, which usually makes it to have the oval shape. To prepare this, one needs to soak the rice for 8 hours or overnight. Add boiled rice to the now drained rice and blend. Add water to the rice while blending to achieve a creamy consistency, but make sure it doesn't become watery. In a small bowl, prove the yeast by mixing it in warm water and sugar. Leave it for a few minutes. In a very big bowl, mix the blended rice with the yeast and optional baking powder. Cover it and let it rest for 6 to 8 hours. The mixture should rise quite a bit and then fall during the course of the 6 to 8 hours. After the 6 to 8 hours, add a pinch of salt and stir. Check for taste. Ensure that it's sweet enough for you. You can add more sugar if you like. Put a little oil in a pan or skillet. Pour in a portion of the rice mixture. Let it cook for a few minutes, then turn it over to the other side. The procedure is same as making pancakes. The rice cakes should come out fluffy and light, like pancakes. It can be served with hot sauce, soup, sugar, maple syrup, or the traditional peanut sauce. It is rich in magnesium and sodium, which helps adjust blood glucose levels. Lysine, threonine, fiber, energy, and selenium.
From May 1 to the 31st, 2022, the Lawrence Tete Ministries would hold a month-long national prayer rally from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. each day, dubbed "This Nonsense Must Stop." The renowned evangelist Dr. Lawrence Tete says it is important for Ghanaians to seek help the church propagate the message of hope and unity through the teachings of high moral and Christian values.
Our nation, Ghana, indeed must succeed. Our approach must be absolute and resolute of purposeful, crying unto the omnipotent Lord to lead us as individuals and as a nation to prosperity, to progress, and certainly to national repentance. We all are going through one thing or the other that is not right. And we know as a people, as a nation, as individuals, that certainly there's certain aspect of our life that absolutely is absurd, and this nonsense must stop.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has presented 30,000 cedis towards the final funeral rites of the late Paramount Chief of the Dentra Traditional Area, Odefo Buamponsem. Dr. Bawumia made the donation when he paid a courtesy call on the Dentra Hima to commiserate with the people of Dentra on the passing of the late chief in 2015. The late Odefo Buamponsem ascended the throne at age 33 and his reign saw massive development in the Dentra traditional area. He reigned for 61 years and died at age 94.
The Still News are live on GBC News, your news and governance channel. We take a break. When we come back, we'll do some business news. Please stay.
Whose stories teach us perseverance, logic, decisiveness, and self-confidence. Being strong is not just about physical abilities, but also emotional, intellectual, and mental strength.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to business. My name is Morris. So, within our very first story, the city is projected by Fitch Solutions to recover some of the grounds it lost to the dollar in the next couple of months. The months of February and March this year saw the city depreciating by almost 15.6%. But after the announcement by the Finance Ministry that it will inject about $2 billion into the economy, the pace at which the local currency was losing its value to its trading partners, especially Good evening, we do business now. My name is Morris Ogbete. Now, the city is projected by Fitch Solutions to recover some of the grounds it lost to the dollar in the next couple of months. The months of February and March this year saw the city depreciating by almost 15.6%. But after the announcement by the Finance Ministry that it will inject about $2 billion into the economy, the pace at which the local currency was losing its value to its trading partners, especially the greenback, stabilized. Also, the Bank of Ghana announced a raft of measures which included increasing cash reserve of commercial banks to 12%. Capital conservation buffer was reset to the pre-pandemic level of 3%, making the capital adequacy ratio a total of 13%. The CD began the year of 2022 at 6 cedis 25 pesos to the US dollar, but it is now going for 7 cedis 44 pesos. The local currency came under severe pressure in the first 3 months of 2022, making it the worst performing currency on the African continent during that period. We do banking now, and Ghana's biggest bank by assets, GCB Bank, grew its profit 27% from 439.5 million Ghana cedis in 2020 to 556.7 million cedis in 2021. Total assets grew 19% from 15.3 million to 18.2 million during the year under review. A look at the financials show a bank that weathered the shocks of a post-COVID economy. All key performance indicators saw an upward trajectory despite a spike in non-performing loans by the first quarter of 2022. The bank's loan portfolio went up from 4.3 million Ghana cedis to 5.2 million Ghana cedis in 2021. Customer deposits rose from 11 million Ghana cedis to over 13 million Ghana cedis. GCB Bank's ability to handle losses, as depicted by its capital adequacy ratio of 20.9%, is strong and well above the banking industry's average of 19.6% as at the first quarter of 2022, and also well above the current revised regulatory minimum of 13%.
When you check on the profit before tax, we achieved that significantly because as we ramp up the revenue, yes, costs did go up, but we did everything to make sure cost growth was far lower than revenue growth. Already the revenue base is bigger and larger than the cost base.
On the downside, the bank suffered a rise in non-performing loans fueled by COVID-19 and the country's weak exchange rate position.
Our trade business is impacted. How is it impacted? I'm talking of foreign trade. Somebody is operating with, for argument's sake, capital of 1 million cedis. By December, if we translated that 1 million cedis, maybe $150,000. By the time the imports come and he's selling, and you must change that money back into dollars, it's no longer $150,000, maybe 120, 110. What that does for a bank is that your customer is stretched. And so the potential for him to default on your repayment also goes up.
Managers of the company, however, assures shareholders the situation is under control. On the outlook, GCB Bank says its ambition to dominate the banking space remains on course. In the days ahead, the bank will strengthen internal controls, update the banking operations system from 12.2 to 14.3. The bank will also automize its systems for optimal efficiency. We go to the interbank forex market and get updates on how the city is performing. We also update you on latest prices of major commodities on the international market. The energy news after this break. Stay with us.
In Accra.
Good evening and welcome to the energy segment. I'm Dominic Honoji. Burning of electric poles which carry power distribution networks of the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, and the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NEDCO, is undermining electricity supply to communities where bushfires often occur. The utilities companies spend huge sums of money in replacing damaged poles as a result of bushfires. This, according to the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, adds to the operational costs of ECG and NEDCO. Speaking with GBC News, the Director of Regional Operations at PURC, Alhaji Abukari Jabaru, said more than 30 poles were burnt in Karaga district alone in 2021.
Bushfires continue to impede smooth power supply as electricity poles are damaged when they occur. According to the Ghana National Fire Service, the fires are often caused by hunters, farmers and smokers. The power utility companies ECG and NEDCO spend huge sums of money each year to replace the damaged poles. Director of Regional Operations at Public Utilities Regulatory Commission PULC, Alhaji Abukari Jabaru, said when the electric poles are bent, the utility companies add the replacement cost to their overall operational cost, which is then factored into the tariff for consumers to pay.
Why can't we have just an attitude change, where maybe as individuals we also stop these bushfires and try as much as possible to be able to prevent this bushfire? Because the bushfires that happens, the community after where the bushfire is happening, if they pour forward, that means that those communities are not going to get light. And it is important we know that sometimes, yes, as residential users, I'm just using it for my residential purposes, just for my comfort, but there are some people we should know that they use it for their livelihood. Even if it's replaced promptly, it increases the operational cost. And if you look at the tariff build-up that when it was going through the tariff, the guidelines, the operation and maintenance cost, once it goes up, it also means that you are going to pay more for electricity and water.
The Volta River Authority VRA says the decision to introduce electric buses into the transport fleet this year will not be possible due to procurement challenges. The Chief Executive of VRA, Mr. Emmanuel Enchidakwa, said the electric vehicle market could not meet the specification demands of the authority. He said the current situation will not steer VRA off its agenda to introduce EV buses into the country. The company says it is taking another look at the plan.
The EV buses, we went through a procurement process because we are a state institution, but we didn't get what we wanted. So we are relaunching it again. That simply is the answer. But it's something that we are committed to. It's unfortunate that the market, I'm sure it was because of COVID, did not give us the response that we were looking for. The market did not respond to the type and the specifications that we provided for the buses. So I think that whilst EV buses are important, most of them will have to be tropicalized. Let me just be frank with you. And I think we didn't get that response from the market.
We now bring you some data on national power generation, Ghana's power export figures, and the water level in the Akosombo and Bui dams. That's it for the energy segment. I'm Dominic Honoji.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Lufat from Tobinco. Two communities, Pevetonu and Hove Alavanyu in the Afajato South district of the Volta region now have a CHIPS compound each to access basic and primary health care. The two facilities, estimated at over 1.5 million Ghana cedis, had funding from the government of Korea through the Korean Foundation for International Healthcare.
It was an appeal from residents of Pevetonu and Hove Alavanyu in the Afajato South district of the Volta region that help came from the Korean Foundation for International Healthcare. They provided the two communities with a CHIPS compound each. Each of the facilities is attached with accommodation for staff. The Volta Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Timothy Lecha, lauded the government of Korea for its assistance to the two communities. He said residents will no longer travel long distances to access basic health care. The acting director in charge of institutional care division at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Lawrence Ofosubuedu, told the beneficiary communities to own the facility and ensure good maintenance culture. The Deputy Minister for Health, Mr. Mahama Seiseni, said the government will need support to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 3, which is hinged on good health and well-being. Korea's ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Lim Chun-taek, again pledged his government's commitment to support Ghana's healthcare system.
Malaria continues to be one of the top 10 outpatient department diseases and a public health concern. Though the National Malaria Control Program has put several interventions in place, the disease burden continues to be high in some regions and districts of the country. The following report takes a look at the impact and role of the Kintampo Health Research Center, one of the malaria research development units of the Ghana Health Service.
The Kintampo Health Research Center, KHRC, was established in 1994 as a center of excellence in research to influence high-level research both in the local community and the sub-region. It has over the years conducted research into diseases such as meningitis, malaria and other tropical diseases, non-communicable diseases and environmental safety, among others, that have informed decision-making in the Ghana Health Service. Known for its training programs and well-resourced laboratory, the Kintampo Health Research Center also played a vital role in the Phase 2 and 3 clinical trials of the RTSS malaria vaccine, which is currently being piloted and implemented in some selected regions of Ghana. Over the years, KHRC has trained over 1,000 laboratory scientists for both the private and public health institutions in Ghana and beyond on standardized malaria diagnostic methods in private and public clinics and laboratories. KHRC has about 20 microscopists who are able to read malaria slide samples and outcomes to influence decision-making, standardization and quality control for study projects, prevention and control of malaria in the country.
We started this malaria work. It was basically one tick film that we put on the slide here. Now we see we have a tick film and then a thin film on the same slide. The tick film is used for diagnosing the parasite. It concentrates the blood and makes it easier for you to be able to see if there's a
We'll bring you a full report of this story in our late news bulletin. And that's it for the health segment, brought to you by Lufat from Tobinco.
Women whose stories teach us perseverance, logic, decisiveness and